I've owned the property quite a few years. I'm here to support the applicant of this property. I think that, as a matter of fact, I wholeheartedly support his request, because I think it'd be an asset to the community. Like the gentleman said, this property has been there for a number of years, dominant, and certainly any rezoning or any preparation that can be done to upgrade the property would be highly desirable. And I fully support Mr. Heffley in this endeavor.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing none, public hearing is declared closed. Mr. Underwood?
I have one.
Yes. Oh, question, Mr. Seeley?
Just one.
Okay.
My only question is, in the sheriff, under the agency and department comments, had one question: are they going to have records? Mr. Fincham, as M1, that is permissible, correct? Tow lot.
A tow service operation with the records is a permitted use in the M1 district, and that has not been proffered out. A tow storage lot would still require a special exception permit from the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
So what you're saying is he could have a record, but he's got to tow the truck, tow the cars or whatever he tows somewhere else.
He could have a record and a very limited number of vehicles on site for a limited period of time.
Right.
The more extended tow storage lot, which requires or which allows a longer period of storage on site, would still require a use permit from the board.
Okay.
So short term.
Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Chairman, I'm familiar with this Boston property.
Turn your mic on.
I'm sorry. I'm familiar with the property here on Route 30. It was used for auto repair years ago, probably 25 years ago at least, I'm sure. I think it's again, rebuilding of a community. I think would be an asset to the community. With that said, I'm going to ask the board members to support me in approving this rezoning to RZ01 2014.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Akers. No more discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Mr. Fincham, special exception 04-2013.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next public hearing is SPEX 04-2013, Aggregate Industries Land Company Incorporated, owner Barden Incorporated applicant, requesting a special exception permit in accordance with Article 17, Section 13, and Article 4, Section 5.3 of the zoning ordinance on tax parcel 97-A-70A, which containing approximately 200 acres of land. The property is located on the north side of Route 600, Frog Level Road, at the King William County line. The property is located in the Bowling Green voting district. The proposed use is a special exception permit for sand and gravel extraction and sales. The 2030 comprehensive plan designates this area as agricultural preservation with a density of 1 dwelling unit per 25 acres of land. The applicant is requesting the approval of the special exception permit to allow sand and gravel extraction on the subject parcel. The special exception is to allow an expansion of an existing sand and gravel operation across the county line in King William County. The granting of the special exception would allow the existing sand and gravel operation an approximately 10 years of additional life at their current location. The special exception application would not involve the relocation of any equipment from King William County. The facility would remain in King William County. The facility would also not generate any additional traffic on Route 600 as the sand and gravel operation is already in existence on the abutting property. The existing entrance to the facility would be used at their current location in King William County. No additional entrances would be constructed at the site. The existing gated farm entrance could be used as an emergency entrance. You have a letter from Beasley Concrete, which was placed at your desk prior to the start of the meeting. You also have the updated phasing plan that was prepared by the applicant in response to Planning Commission questions at their hearing. The Planning Commission did review the special exception request and forwarded this application to the board with a recommendation of approval subject to the conditions contained in your staff report.
Board members have any questions of Mr. Fincham at this time?
Yeah. Generally speaking, when we have requests like this to come before the board, somewhere in the report it's estimated as to the benefit it would be to Caroline County, whether it be financial, whatever the case may be. And generally for these type of operations, it's an equipment that's housed on site.
Yes, sir.
I haven't seen anywhere in here where it gives me any numbers as to what benefit would be to Caroline County.
I believe the applicant is going to address that issue. That issue was discussed with the applicant. You are correct. Generally, the economic benefit to the county is in the form of the machinery and tools taxes that we collect on the equipment. The issue here is that the equipment is not proposed to be relocated. So I believe the applicant will address that this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Akers. Mr. Fincham, the applicant is here.
Yes, sir.
All righty, let's have him address that. We will declare the public hearing to be opened.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and staff. I'm going to insert my PowerPoint in here, very short.
Probably not. This is off. Now it's on. It's on. Okay.
Yes, I just thank you for the technical moment. My name is John Lane. I'm with McGuire Woods here on behalf of the applicant, Allied Land Company. Also have with me tonight representatives of Allied Land Company and representatives of the engineering group who can address questions and fill in some information as needed. And Mr. Tim Bavard will speak directly to your economic question to talk about the indirect and direct impacts. What I'd like to do is just briefly give a short presentation about the project itself and how it meets the standards for a special exception. And essentially, I think the most important thing about this project is that it's an existing plant that has been, this operation, the sand and gravel extraction operation, has been ongoing for approximately 15 years in this location. The fact that the processing plant will remain in its existing location is because it's essentially running out of materials on the King William side of the property to be mined, so they're just going to move across the county line and bring the material back to the existing processing plant, which won't get closer to any other neighbors and will be the same character of the processing as existed before. Similarly, production will be the same because this is just replacement minerals, not additive sand and gravel. And then another very important factor, I believe, is that the fact that trucks are often a big concern with mining sand and gravel cases, but in this case, traffic will remain the same. No new road entrances are necessary. It's just going to move internally from the mined area to the processing plant and then out the same exit. And here's you have these maps, but for the public as well, here's a map showing the property. The new property is outlined in black. The existing plant is up to the right, and the road will just go diagonally up to the right to the back of that plant. And so there won't be any entrances out of the front of the property other than there's an existing farm entrance there that will remain only to be used for emergency access. And we spent a few months working with staff and neighbors talking about concerns, and think we have, with the conditions that have been recommended that we accept, we think we have a project that will meet the requirements of the county ordinance and comprehensive plan. The standards, just to run through them. First, that the use won't adversely affect the character and established pattern of the area. And in this case, as an existing operation, the use has been there for 15 years. Nothing about the character of this area is going to change when the new mining operations start. Second standard, that shall be in harmony with uses permitted by right under the permit in the zoning districts. It shall not adversely affect the use of neighboring properties. Again, this use wouldn't interfere with any other permitted uses within this district, which is rural preservation. The neighbors, because of the buffers, the agreement on limiting hours, the ability to phase, we've changed our phasing plan so that we're working away from the nearest neighbor so that the immediate impact to him will be the go away the fastest. We don't believe that there will be any unreasonable adverse effects for neighboring properties. There are third standard about location and height of buildings, etc. At fences. There's going to be no buildings there, no permanent structures at all on the property. So that really isn't an applicable standard. The use shall not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed use. Again, this has been going on for 15 years. Nothing really about it will change. The King William County had been notified. They have not had problems with the existing use. And finally, number 5, the use shall not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood. Again, sounding a broken record, but an existing use that's been there won't change the character around it. It hasn't caused problems in the years that it's been there, and we don't expect that the use, as it would go forward, would cause any problems to property or improvements in the area. Ordinance requires that the use will be in accordance with the zoning regulations and the comprehensive plan. We believe, again, with conditions recommended by staff. Sand and gravel extraction is a permitted use with a special exception in this zoning category. The conditions are designed to do exactly what they do, which is make sure it meets the standards, and we have accepted those conditions and believe they've been worked out with the neighbors and resolve most of the issues that come up with a use like this. And then with respect to the comprehensive plan, this area is designated to be in the agricultural preservation land use plan, or as its use. Post-mining, reclamation is done as the mining occurs. Post-reclamation, crops can be planted, pasture land can be used, so this will remain open space. The question of whether
you want to summarize, because you've gone past your 5 minutes. So you want to summarize?
I can summarize to say, number 7, we have plenty of utilities and drainage and parking, and we would just request that you ask us any questions you'd like. I'd like for Mr. Rivard to have a moment to give the direct economic impacts and have some time later to answer questions. Thank you.
We will give you the opportunity to answer questions, and if you'd like to come up and...
Excuse me?
You gave the lawyer 5 minutes. He gets to go first. Now you only get 3.
I only get 3.
Right.
Good afternoon, or good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name's Tim Bavard with Aggregate Industries. I'm a land manager for the sand and gravel operation. As John mentioned, or the lawyer mentioned, this site will give us about 10 more years life for the existing operation that we have there at Mattapanai. The direct economic benefits is last year the site had 13 employees, and we had a payroll, in direct payroll dollars, it was $767,000 was paid to those 13 employees in direct payroll. Doesn't include their 401k matches and health care matches. We also have 15 independent haulers that haul our materials from the site, which it keeps them employed, and they are also allowed to go around and access all of the different companies that use our materials. It's a reduced cost of materials in the marketplace having competition of the sand and gravel companies for governmental use, private use, and for industrial purposes. There's tax revenue through real estate taxes, sales taxes, fuel taxes, and mineral taxes that Caroline County would be able to collect on this operation. The mineral tax, I was able to come up with the formula from Ms. Sharon Carter, and overall, over the 10 years, it would create about $94,300 in taxes, so it would be about $9,300 a year over the 10 years. So there is a mineral tax associated with this project. There's local spending by the company employees and haulers. We do buy locally. Our fuel, tires, and equipment is about $300,000 a year for supplies, office supplies, uniforms. The annual stimulus created by this operation of everything that goes on there is about $6.7 million a year is economic stimulus. It comes directly from the operation and the parts and services that we buy. The capital investment in the equipment on the plant site is about $2.5 million. The benefit to the county is having an adequate supply of these types of materials, and competition in the marketplace keeps the prices down for these materials. These materials are used, construction aggregates are used in building schools, roads, homes, foundations, sidewalks. Everything that we've been accustomed to in life generally comes from the ground, and these materials are used in the production of ready-mix concrete and asphalt. Have you not having, or if the county did not have local uses, it's a low-cost, sand and gravel is a low-cost commodity, and the large percentage of the cost of the material is the hauling of the material. If you didn't have materials in and around the marketplace, like you do currently, as we produce today for a local producer, you got a letter from Mr. Ray Beasley, and you had to haul these materials from 50 miles away. They're not locally available and you have to truck them in. If you had to truck the material in excess of what we truck it today, an additional 40 to 50 miles, a yard of concrete would go up about $7.55 a yard, which is about $75 a load. And if you were building your new school with 5,000 yards of concrete, basically you would add in direct cost $37,500 to the cost of that building, just in direct cost of not having these materials in the local marketplace. Another example would be we supply snow sand to VDOT every year. Numerous of our plants make sand for VDOT. The same being true, if you had to haul it in about 50 miles, it would cost you about $5 a ton additional, and a 10,000 ton order, which would not be unusual for VDOT, and just direct cost, you'd have $50,000 more spent on your snow sand than being able to produce it here and supply it locally.
So did I misunderstand you and you said you were going to donate sand for the new school?
We would gladly talk to the county about that. I don't know if we can make the donation, but the sand would be available if this project is approved.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody have any? Well, okay. You were the last one to speak. Okay. Would you like to speak, sir? Yes. Okay, now he ran over his time, so please don't run over your time. But since he was going to make a donation, I figured I'd let him keep going. You can go longer if you're going to make a donation, too.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors, my name is Brad Ashley. I reside at 2 West River Road, Ruther Glen. My property is immediately adjacent to this mining operation. I received notice of this special exception in the middle of February of this year, At that point, I got with the planning staff. Miss Angelina Pitts has been most gracious in working with me. I've worked on numerous occasions through the Planning Commission to try to resolve some of the issues. They were most professional, they were receptive, they listened, and I greatly appreciate that. In addition, Mr. Bavard came down from his home in Maryland to my home to meet with me in my home, and I've also met with him and a number of representatives on site to try to discuss this operation. My family owns just over 200 acres. The site's just a little larger than the proposed special exception here in front of you tonight. Prior to purchasing the property, we did our due diligence. All the property surrounding me is a wetland. Directly across in Caroline County in the 2013 plan, it was one house per 25 acres. Not what's going on in King William, but what was going on in Caroline County. We purchased the property in 2007. I built my home in 2009. My family has over $800,000 invested in this property. That's a lot of money to us. My physical home is 250 yards from this operation. Proposed for mining. More important than that, my property is 150 feet in elevation above the proposal. So I get to look at this mining operation on a 45-degree angle directly from my back porch. The proposed change from agricultural preservation to a mine modestly would impact my property by 15%. That would be over $120,000 directly out of my bottom line worth. During the mining operation, it basically makes my property unsellable. Nobody's going to move out here as I did for peace and quiet to have a mining operation that I have 250 yards from my back porch. It's just devastating to the quality of life for my entire family. That's not what we came here for. And it's not 40 hours, not 50, not 60, but 62 hours a week we get to listen to this. 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. till 2 o'clock on Saturday. The roar of the engines, the clang of the metal, the fumes, the dust, I get the whole Monty. Under the existing plant in King William, about 3 times farther than this, I can be in my bedroom in the morning with everything closed and hear the operation extremely well. So I can't imagine how this will impact me when and if it is approved. It also appears to be somewhat of a violation of your standards for special exception number 3. The special exception will not hinder adjacent or nearby property or impair the value thereof. I can assure you this is going to impair the value of my property. This special exception will not add jobs. This special exception long-term, not 10 years, not 2050, will have a negative impact on tax revenue for Caroline County residents. The renewable resources, sand and gravel, will be taken. They can't be renewed. They'll be sold to the highest bidder. The land will no longer perk. Here's a little detail, too. That land will be 17 feet in elevation below where it is right now. And the ponds, they're not really ponds. They're stormwater detention basins. What could go wrong with 150 acres of mine site, 17 feet below the current elevation, going directly into these stormwater basins? Then from there it goes into Boot Creek, Maiden Creek, and ultimately the Mattaponic. My purpose here tonight, you've got a decision to make, and I'm not for or against this project, but I do ask you this humbly, and this is my purpose for being here. Frame this operation with a timeline. They've said 10 years. I've heard that from the planning department. I've heard that from Tim Bavard. I think it can be done in 5. It seems like 7.5 is a reasonable split in time. Really, in this time, I can't sell my property. I'm a 62-year-old man. I don't have a whole lot longer to go than that. It's important to me that there is a time limit. Under the existing conditions, it's a 5-year limit. Now what happens there is aggregates are great people, they're a good company, they are not going to violate the conditions because they have multi-millions of dollars to make. So if they're going to abide by the conditions, and you and I and all of us may or may not be here in 5 years, but I'm asking you to use the power that you have tonight and put a cap on this. If aggregates wants to mine it, if that's something you think is in the best interest of the citizens in Caroline County, then do it. But do it in 7.5 years and let me get on with my life so I don't have to hear this 62 hours every week on Saturday and smell the fumes and watch the trucks directly from my back porch. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Questions at this point are for Mr. Fincham or the applicant. Ms. Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Fincham.
Yes, sir.
In regards to a cap being placed on the amount of time that this will allow this operation to exist. Right now, there is no cap. Is that right, or is it?
It says a review every 5 years.
There is no cap on the total length of time. The 10 years was based on the estimates of the volume or the amount of sand in that location. There's a 5-year review period, but if the board wants to place a limit on the 7.5, 10 years, a time limit, then yes, you can do that.
Okay. I guess my question would be to the applicant and how the applicant would respond to a cap being placed on this particular project.
You can answer, Mr. Barr. You can answer.
From right here?
You can answer. How do you feel about a cap of 10 years being placed on your project?
Or 7.5.
Okay,
Or
well,
7.5.
the issue with the cap, because we had talked, because originally I don't think the special exception had even a 5-year in it. There's about 5.6 million tons on that particular site. Generally, we will wash about 5 million tons, just short of 5 million tons a year. If you do the math, it's about 10 years. That's why we say originally when we met, it's about a 10-year project. We've just come through one of the worst recessions that we've been in my lifetime, and I can't predict what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years. But if we would develop the site and you put a cap on us, it would be a shame to have a site that you can mine with available material that's permitted that you can't get to. So basically with the 5.6 million tons, if you put a 5-year cap on us or a 7-year cap on us, we're not able to tap all of the reserves there that we would like to get for that facility. So it would be a financial burden to aggregate to go through the process and then leave the available sand and gravel in this particular case.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, sir.
Mr. Ashley.
Mr. Ashley, when did you move, and you probably said this, and I don't remember.
Yes, sir.
When did you purchase your property?
2007, I purchased the property. In 2009, I built my home. And under 7.5 years, it's only 150 acres to mine because most of the other properties and berms and so forth, I only have a 100-foot buffer where everyone else has 200. But be that as it may, they can mine it. It's only 20 acres a year under 7.5. I could get my John Deere out there and pretty close to do 20 acres a year. But the long and short of it is, if they have to mine it, they can mine it and stockpile it. The only difference is it's 50 cents a ton more is what it costs them. That's the real deal. It's money just like everything else.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you, sir. I guess my concern is, I do have a concern personally for this gentleman. He lived there, and
Okay.
if he would be willing to cap it, then I might think in terms of it. But I just have a concern for what his concern is. I wouldn't want to live there. Thank you.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I have a couple. This is in a, I guess, Mr. Fincham would be the one who would address. This is in a near Boot Swamp, right? This is in a near a swamp area, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I guess the question I have for it is, if they're going to be mining, there's going to be a hole going down, correct? I mean, so we're going to be going down deeper than swamp is a low-lying area. So, I mean,
Yes.
am I correct on that?
Yes.
So I guess my question is, and I was just thinking about this in terms of, you got a swamp area, if we have the rains like we had, what effect does that have? Like we have rains what we had in the past month and a half, with that mining operation in a area that's obviously a floodplain and low-lying area.
You will have a period of time where you have a temporary increase perhaps in the elevation of your groundwater as well as surface water. The floodplain regulations really speak to construction in a floodplain. They do not speak to excavation in a 100-year floodplain. So our floodplain regulations are not intended to prohibit, restrict, or really even address mineral extraction. It's more about construction of buildings, structures, storage of flammables, etc., in the 100-year floodplain. So the short answer to your question, you may have periods where you have some inundation of land. You may have periods where the groundwater levels increase above what the current groundwater levels are for some period of time. That would be contained within the excavated areas on the site.
And how far down are they going? Just out of curiosity, do we know how many feet down they're going with this extraction?
Well, I think Mr. Ashley indicated it was going to be about 17 feet below the current elevation of the ground in that area.
Mr. Ashley? Thank you.
I mean, I can get the exact number for you, and go back in the report and get the exact number for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Underwood?
Mike, Mr. Fincham, how many sand and gravel operations do we have in the county now?
Can you give me a minute to count my fingers?
Right. So basically, the analogy of driving 50 miles to get sand is out the window because we don't need to drive 50 miles to get sand, do we?
We have several sand and gravel operations existing or approved in the northern part of the county.
Okay.
I don't believe we have one south of Bowling Green. I believe that's the closest one in Caroline County to this site, would be the one on 301, the Luckstone
Right.
operation just south of town.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, my concern really as I listen to the gentleman speak about the economic impact to Caroline County, basically I heard $9,400 a year over, and I think the quality of life for Mr. Ashley, 7 years is basically $59,000. I think his quality of life to me is more valuable than that. So I do have some concerns also, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Akers?
I want to make sure I understood the gentleman here from Harrogate. When he said that Caroline County would benefit from sales taxes as well, what are you referring to there?
When you make a sale, it's like any other material. If you're selling...
I understand the process of sales tax.
Yes,
I understand how
solid-
that works. But I didn't realize that it would apply to what comes out of Caroline County. If you're operating in King William, I did not realize it would
Well,
apply to the...
I would hope that it would trickle back through the state, into the state sales tax, and the state sales tax
Oh, that's
trickles back
what
to the
you're
county.
Oh, okay.
Well, and the other sales
You
tax,
don't assume, okay? Because I can tell you, as of today, there's been no budget approved by the General Assembly, so don't assume that at all. Because the chances of that happening are pretty slim. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
And we also have a real issue in getting money we send to Richmond to come back, so that's another
Thank
story.
you.
Mr. Seeley, this is your district. Mike, this is how far from 301? It's going up, it's like 3 miles?
No, it's further than 3 miles.
Oh, Oh, 8? Okay.
About.
Mr. Ashley just said 8 miles. Now, Mr. Ashley, you said during your presentation, you live in King William? Or you live in Caroline?
Mr. Chairman, I have 100 acres in Carolina, 100 in King William. It's crazy. I had to get my building permit out of King William.
Where's your house?
I go to court in Caroline. My house is actually in Caroline County.
Okay.
But my taxes go to King William. I don't know how it's set up.
Oh,
but
we're going to fix that.
Okay.
Did you say during your presentation, you mentioned $800,000?
Yes, sir.
That was the value of your property?
Of my property and my home.
And your home?
And the improvements I've made to it since I purchased. Yes, sir.
Okay. Because you're going to pay like $6,400 a year in taxes.
I don't doubt that. I have it in preservation right now, so I don't pay quite that much, but it's moving in that direction.
We might fix that too. But I mean, just purely financial.
Yes, sir.
If your house is worth $800,000, our tax rate is 83 cents, it's a little more than $6,400 a year. We're going to get $9,000 a year from aggregate is what they're saying. But your house value may go down. Now, if your house value goes down, it's not going to go down $9,000, but we won't realize all of the money they're saying we'll realize because we'll lose a little bit in the devaluing of your house.
Yes, sir, but let me make sure I'm clear here because I do not want to misrepresent this. I pay taxes to King William County. I have 100 acres in Caroline County and probably a little over 100 in King William.
Your house is in Caroline?
My house is in Caroline, right on the glacier line. And that is some predetermined thing before I moved there. This is what I was directed to do, and of course that's what I do. So I don't want to misrepresent that I'm paying X number of dollars to Caroline County because that's not accurate.
Okay, well, I believe the Commonwealth of Virginia has certain laws that say if your house is in a locality, you have to pay taxes to that locality.
Well,
so
yeah.
We're going to fix that. You don't even have to worry about that.
Yes, sir. That's not my thing.
We're going to fix that part. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. That's it for you. I appreciate it. Why are you getting up?
I was going to add one more item.
No, thank you. Mr. Bavard, tell me one more time how much money there's going to be for the county.
Well, directly in the county uses something called the Hoscold method, and it's a method to determine the value of material to convert it to your 83 cents per hundred. And I got this from Mrs. Sharon Carter, from the Commissioner of the Revenue.
Right.
Looking at the number of tons that we think are there, using Miss Carter's formula, the number comes out totally, this would be for the deposit that we think's in the ground, $94,354.
For the life of the project?
For the life of the mine.
Okay.
Dividing that by 10.
And that's all, right? Because there's no vehicles you're moving into the county, all that's going to stay in King William?
There would be mining equipment located in Caroline County, but that would be mobile mining equipment.
But that's housed in King William?
It's housed in King William at the time. It would, of course, be on site.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Seeley, you're last. It's in the district you represent.
Mr. Chairman, I spent about an hour and a half looking at the site a couple weeks ago. I looked at the general lay of all the land. I even looked for the houses around, and I know it's May and you can't see them. I looked pretty hard, didn't see a thing. One of the issues, I think, is that Beasley Concrete and some folks that actually live in Caroline County work there. And in this economy, losing jobs is not something that I think is something we can afford to do. The land, I looked at where they would cross Boot Swamp to come across. There's an existing lane. The property that's being mined is already open. I looked at the land that had been mined, the land that was going to be mined. The difference in it is very, very slight when you look at where they were, what they're working in, and what's been reclaimed. I was pretty surprised. Taking all that into account, and that we're getting ready to build a school, not sure where our concrete's going to come from,
Oh, they might
respectively
donate sand
from.
too.
See, you never know. We might get a good deal on sand for Beasley Concrete and a reduced price on concrete from them. But looking at the general topography and the land use there, I would say that the impact was very, very minimal. And I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve special exception 04-2013 for Aggregate Industries Corporation.
Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? And your motion would be to approve aggregate for the duration, 10 years or whatever, or just approve it, period? No limit, or without limit?
I'm not sure we've ever been able to place sunsets on anything, so I'm not, without somebody from legal telling us we can do that, because in the past we've been told we can't put sunset clauses, but we do have a 5-year review process.
Okay. Was there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? Give you a chance to modify the motion before it dies.
Mr. Chairman, I'll modify the motion to expire in 10 years from the date of the filing of the plan.
Is there a second to that motion? No second? Any other motions?
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion that can I ask the property owner, the current property owner right now?
I'm sure hoping it's a yes or no question, but go right ahead. Mr. Ashley?
Yes.
Yeah. No, he.
Oh, you're the Jason property. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
I guess my question is, would you be willing, have you sat down with the company already and talked to them?
Oh, they've been great to work with. I don't want in any way to think that that's any negative reflection
Mr.
on
Ashley?
Mr. Vart came in
Mr.
from
Ashley?
Maryland to my home.
That was a yes or no
Oh,
question.
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Have you sat
I have
down
met with him, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Would you be willing to continue to work with them?
Certainly.
Mr. Chairman, let me do this. Can I table this and have further discussion with both aggregate and staff and bring this up at our first meeting in
You have that courtesy.
July?
July? You withdraw your motion,
Withdraw my motion.
and he's making a motion. Well, we actually provide that courtesy, so if it's in his district, he's making a motion to defer, a request to defer, we automatically defer it. I don't see any need to do that because I think most of the board would concur with deferral. So, and that's our common courtesy because we're civilized here. So, all right, first meeting in July?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. We will discuss that again. Mr. Fincham, we'll move on to special exception 01-2014, Trimmer Thomas Lee and SIG Acquisitions.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next public hearing is SPEX 01-2014. Thomas Trimmer owner, SIG Acquisition Company LLC applicant, requesting a special exception permit in accordance with Article 17, Section 13, and Article 12, Section 2 of the Caroline County zoning ordinance on tax map 82-80-105. They're requesting a special exception permit to allow a reduction in the minimum yard requirements for a public utility. The subject property is located at 10,257 Patterson Lane, Route 715, in the Mattaponi voting district. Again, the proposed use is an exemption from the minimum lot size requirement in the RP district and to allow a modification to the rear setback. The 2030 comprehensive plan identifies this area as the Carmel Church Community Plan and designated for commercial and office uses. The applicant is requesting approval for the special exception permit to modify the minimum lot size and setback requirements for a proposed parcel